welcome to my video. My name is Ajane for those of you who are new to the channel. I do a lot of social work videos, professional style videos, lifestyle, travel, a little bit of everything. And today I wanted to share with you study habits that I adapted while I was studying for my master's level social work license. And I passed. I freaking passed. I'm so excited. I am so enthused. Today is March 3rd, and I actually took the exam on February 26th, so just last Saturday, a few days ago. And I am still like, I wake up like I don't have to study. I am free of the stress and anxiety of wondering if I'm going to pass the exam or whatever. So I just kind of wanted to share with you guys some of the YouTube channels or websites that actually helped me throughout the process. I started studying the second week of January. And I didn't study every day. I didn't want to study every day, even though I felt guilt about not studying every day. I definitely tried to prioritize days and hours to studying each week. But some days I just wasn't in the mood, and those were the days that I just found that it was so important to listen to my mind and take a day to relax. Like if I studied for 3 days straight, and if I really wasn't in the mood and I just wanted to, after work, go home, eat, and watch catfish, then that's what I did. But not saying that it was easy for me to do those things. It wasn't easy for me to relax or to hang out with my friends or to set time apart to do personal things and to dedicate and split my attention with work and family and just life things that came up. It was definitely a struggle. January, I kind of gave myself a good chunk to just like learn a lot of like the human development, the theories and things like that. So I studied probably about 3 weeks, and honestly January is probably the most consistent that I was able to study. February came, and that's when I knew that I needed to hit the ground running. Some of the things that I ended up doing that were helpful for me was I told very limited people that I scheduled my exam or that I was even taking it. I was very vague to people when they asked like, oh, like why can't you go out? I'm like, oh, I'm studying, or I'll just say like, oh, I'm just staying home, I'm saving money, which I was. So a lot of my friends actually respected my boundaries and really didn't push me or inquire more unless I was willing to give more information. So I am really, really grateful for that. And yeah, so I didn't tell a lot of people because I knew that that was going to add pressure to me. I knew that that was going to add a level of expectation. I didn't want to have to feel like I disappointed anyone if I wasn't going to pass. So I was very limited on who I told more information to or who I was vague with. And it was nothing personal. It was just like the more people I told, the more stress and anxiety that I felt. And so in order to kind of avoid those feelings, I only told a handful of people about the actual test date and like my feelings throughout the process. And so I definitely scheduled a lot less social events so that I could prioritize studying and make that a focus. And also I found myself to try to be around other people who were in graduate school or going through something similar that they needed extra support or that I could like focus in an environment with. So I was very limited on who I told. I didn't give myself a lot of time to overthink or overstudy. I probably even gave myself too much time because I personally would have had my exam closer to maybe the middle of the month or the beginning of the month, because I think I scheduled this back in November or December, and I wanted to just get through the holidays without any stress, without any like feeling like obligated to study or to seclude or isolate myself. And so I specifically scheduled my exam for the end of February because January was already taken up by the time that I was applying for my actual date. And so the next best date and soonest date was sometime in February. So I did the end of February because that really did give me ample time to, in my mind, study and obtain materials, get materials, practice, and, you know, do my best. So I didn't give myself too much time, so I definitely applied enough time to have a test date and kind of know when my test date was to try to navigate and figure out and schedule and plan properly on when I was going to study and take off work if necessary and things like that. So I would say to plan out, at least have your test date. It can be 4 months, 5 months down the line. But if that's something that's important to you, is knowing that at least that part is taken care of, so that you don't get to the summertime and you have all these vacations planned and you're still trying to study. Like, I knew that I wanted it to be before my trip to Belize, and so that I wouldn't have to worry about it. So I knew the trip to Belize was like 2 weeks after my exam, and I was like, I'm either going to need the trip to forget about the exam, or I'm going to need the trip to also celebrate and like really enjoy it and like enjoy myself. So that was something that I was going to look forward to, whether I pass or fail. So I think like having a trip, it could be a solo trip, it could be a trip with friends, it could be a dinner right after the same day, to just like surround yourself with people that will be there to support you no matter what the outcome is. Like, the glasses can be a little distracting sometimes. So yeah, I scheduled it at a good time that was good for me, because I knew that I possibly am going to be looking for a new job, and after my Belize trip is when I wanted to start to look for my job. So March is like a very pivotal moment for me in knowing that like I was going to either start looking for a new job or like possibly moving and things like that. So I knew that I wanted it to be before March that I took the exam. So that's why like the end of February was kind of like, this is it. This is what's going to be the test of time. And I also wanted it to be soon enough so that after, if I needed to take the exam again, that I would have enough time to do that before the summer hit, and so I can meet all of my goals and wouldn't have to stay at my job longer than I needed to, because I needed to still study and things like that. So I would definitely plan to schedule out weekends or work days, or take off certain days if you have the PTO or time or availability or the flexibility to do that, to focus on that. Another thing that really helped me was figuring out, I've been out of school almost 3 years this year, and so it was really hard for me to get back into the whole study habit, because I originally had like my test date like for 2020, but we all know what happened in 2020. So a lot of things were shut down. At one point I didn't feel comfortable taking the exam, because I just felt like I got into this bad habit of not studying or really remembering. I was just like really focused on work and trying to survive, honestly. And so it wasn't a priority to me at that time, was to take my exam, but I never forgot about it, and it did like hover over me. So then at that point I had to kind of do some recon and like make sure that I was still in compliance with all of the requirements to even take the exam. So making sure that like my suicide class and credit was still valid. My background check I had to redo over because that had expired at that point. And yeah, so I had to kind of like do some of this process over again. And so that obviously took some time, and so I had to like send it in, get approved and things like that. So also what helped me throughout that time is to definitely think more positive than negative. Obviously I had moments of doubt, of fear, of dread of taking the exam, because like I said, I was out of like the school mindset for over 2 years at that point. And so I was really nervous. I didn't really know how I could learn again, or like relearn the things that I forgot but were kind of still in my mind. So I had to figure out a good way. I kept a lot of the papers and the lectures and the study material from my graduate degree. So those classes and things like that, I did try to log into my school system because they told me that I would be able to access it, but that was a lie. So that was unsuccessful, but I still printed off pretty much everything, because at the time of me going through school, I had lectures. So I would print off everything that they had, and then like as I would go listen to my or watch my lectures, I would write on the paper, you know, different notes and things like that. And so I had all those things, but I just had to like connect it without the lectures again, because I had all the papers. Some of them weren't written on and some of them were. So I had to organize everything by the different categories, like DSM-5, medications, substance use, LGBTQ, you know, human theories, research stuff. So I had to like organize it. So I took a day to really like organize all of my materials. I also, like I said, had to figure out how to relearn. I did my graduate online, so I knew that I could be successful in teaching myself some things, but like I said, I had a lot of support through my online with lectures and my teachers going over PowerPoints and voiceovers and things like that. So I had to like figure out a way in order to learn, and that was working best for me. Throughout the times of me studying over the last like 2 months, I definitely found that I was successful in learning things by just repeating it over and over. For some areas of the exam, material, and then like some things I visually needed to see it, I visually needed to hear it, I needed to do both. I needed to write down and also see it, hear it, and repeat it. So nothing was just like one way. I had to adapt and be flexible with my learning. And I think that's definitely important when you're going over your exam, is to just figure out what works best for you. And there may not be just one cut way that you can learn. I think that it's important to figure out and find other ways to study if that's going to work best for you. So yeah, I have a lot of different, I have my laptop here, I have my baby here, and I'm just going to also link for you guys, the different materials that I used. That I found to be really helpful. First off, I did end up purchasing the practice exam through the ASWB website. So that's the official practice exam that is administered by the Social Works Board. So I did that. I ended up purchasing that maybe, it was a week before my exam. So I made sure that I studied as much as I could. Maybe like 10 days before my actual exam was supposed to be, I purchased the practice exam, and then I took the practice exam, like I said, like 9 days before, and I went through it the one time so I can actually see like how long it would possibly take me, and went through it so I also knew what I needed to study. I think that it's a really good idea, if you have the funds to do that, is to buy and purchase the practice exam, because it helped me out tremendously. It definitely helped me because I was able to see like what questions that I didn't consider while studying, what I still needed to do while studying, and what I needed to go over or review. And I love that the exam, the practice exam, after you finished it, it allowed you to it allowed for like reasonings of why this was the correct answer for whatever you missed. So I found that to be really, really beneficial. It also broke down into the different segments of the different like areas that it was focusing on. So like human diversity and development, or ethics. So ethics was something that I struggled with because it's not something that I went over in a few years. I didn't even really review it before I took the practice exam. So that's something that's obviously on the exam. It tells you that on the practice books and websites and things like that, that you need to review those things. And so I was able to understand the reasoning behind certain things that didn't make a lot of sense to me without studying. And so I definitely was able to apply that on the actual LMSW exam, on the ASWB exam. So I definitely would suggest that if you can save up for it, set some money aside and purchase that. That was definitely a good game changer and helpful for me. I also ended up purchasing the ASWB booklet. It kind of like goes through the different study tips and breaks down how the exam asks you questions. And so I don't think that it was necessarily worth the money, but I think that it was helpful, if that makes any sense. Take a look at it, because it explains like how they word the questions, why they word it this way, what to look for, be aware of when approaching those type of questions. So it was helpful in a sense, but I definitely think that I would have managed without that information, and I definitely don't think that it was necessarily worth the price. And it was also in a booklet. I don't know if it came in an ebook, and I just purchased the book, but whatever. It can be beneficial to kind of like help you understand their process and their thoughts when creating the questions. But it definitely wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought that it was gonna give you a lot more questions to practice with, or like explain things a little further, but it did help me understand what topics to study. And that could be overwhelming to some people, and that could be beneficial to someone. So I definitely was a little overwhelmed at one point looking at it, because I was like, well, how am I gonna learn all of this information in less than 2 months, a little less than 2 months? So like I said, take what you can and use what you want. So YouTube was a huge game changer for me. YouTube was super helpful in navigating different theories, different prevention methods, different ethics questions, different practice questions, different ways to think about and consider things and to apply them, and how to study, and ways to remember certain information. And that was super, super helpful, because I didn't have time to always sit down and study and read. And so being able to have an auditory learning experience was really helpful for me, like because I would be driving and I could put a YouTube video on and I could just listen to it, or while I was waiting or grocery shopping I could listen or watch the video. Or so I will definitely put the top YouTubers that I use. I'm not saying that you have to use their information, but it will definitely lead you in the right area for finding other people that maybe I didn't even take a look at. Also, I would suggest leaving comments down below for those of you who have went through the exam and you found their different websites and things like that. So I've saved all of those tabs pretty much of the different things that were helpful for me. I'm not going to list every single video that I've watched because that would just be ridiculous, but I'm going to put their actual YouTube channel in the description box so that you can click it and then like go over things that you might need. So that was really helpful. And once I like go over the DSM-5, for example, because you know that's going to be on the exam, DSM-5 questions, I want a Quizlet. Quizlet was very helpful for me because I was able to put the disorder, and then I can put information that I needed or felt like I needed to know on the back of the quiz, like, you know, on the back of it. So I can either put it at random so that it's out of order, so I don't, you know, become like, it's not routine, so I don't remember the routine of it, but like it's random. Sometimes it will flip it backwards, so I'll just have the different symptoms and then I will have to say what the disorder is, or vice versa. So Quizlet was awesome. Quizlet also has a lot of other social workers that have already gone through the process or gone through classes and theories and, you know, all the different things that could possibly be on the exam that they've learned in school or while they were studying for the exam, and they have that already like kind of like created for you. So you don't really have to do any work if you don't want to. You could just like look up LMSW or social work, blah, 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 or blah, 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 whatever you're studying, and it's more than likely that it will come up, and then you can just say that to a different group, or you can say that and reference it back. So I also had that on my phone. So when I would have downtime, if like I had a dentist appointment, I was sitting there waiting and I went on my Quizlet and I would just go through easily instead of like scrolling on the internet or something, or like social media. I would use that time to benefit for studying. So I think I kind of like quickly brushed off the whole like positive self-talk. I don't know if I even mentioned that yet, but that was super helpful for me. So every time that I kind of had a negative thought of fear and doubt, anxiety, or thinking that I wasn't going to pass, or thinking there was no way that I was going to study enough, then I would always be like, no, you can do this. You got your bachelor's, you got your master's, you've worked in several different work settings. You know what it is that you need to learn. So just believe in yourself, have positive self-talk, have confidence in yourself, know that you're not a failure if you don't pass the first time, know that it's gonna be okay, know that you're capable, that you're qualified, that you've made it this far. And so that was really, really helpful for me, is just having more positive self-talk, more confidence in myself, and not allowing myself to be completely defeated, knowing that I also needed to stick to my first instinct and my first gut. So after the practice exam, I was able to see that like I changed my mind a lot, and I doubted myself because there's only one right answer, and most of the time I picked the right answer, but I I would go back and change it. So on the actual exam, I told myself that I was going to answer every single question. I wasn't going to skip around. I was going to make a decision before I went to the next question so that I didn't forget a question, and that I didn't have to waste time after the exam to, you know, think back. So whatever my first question was, my first answer or solution to that question was, that was it. I moved on from it. There were maybe like 2 or 3 that I flagged to just go back and double check after having some time to think about it and going through the other questions, thinking that maybe something else would trigger my memory about it. But go with your first gut. Have that practice exam as a way to judge where you are in your confidence level, where you are in your competence level. And so you can know that like usually the first answer that I go for is usually the right answer, so that you aren't juggling back and forth between 2 different answers. You kind of just know that I'm just going to stick to my first gut because that's usually right. So I just made sure that I talked to myself up the day before, especially, and the day of, that I got there early enough to take the exam, that I wasn't stressed about getting there or arriving late or going through the whole like check-in process. So I definitely gave myself ample amount of time. And honestly, it can be kind of intimidating going to the testing center and having to like get your palm scanned and get your picture taken, and them asking you questions and have to lock up your stuff and not having breaks and stuff. But that honestly, because it distracted me from being too stressed out to actually take the exam until I actually got into the room. So I think that was helpful for me, and not having that extra like 15 minutes to study, and just be like, okay, it is what it is. Like I've done what I can do and it's game time. So those were the things that really helped me. Like I said, I'm going to link down a lot of the different resources that I found to be helpful or most beneficial for me while preparing and studying for the different material that I needed for the exam. I am really so excited that I was able to pass on my first try, but also don't beat yourself up if you don't pass on the first try or if you haven't passed on the first try. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful for you guys. I hope that the materials that I linked down below can definitely benefit you or help you, give you a little bit of confidence. And I won't be answering any questions about the exam, like any specific questions that you want to know about, but I can definitely just like refer you back to the different study materials that I have. But I'm not going to risk anything to take this license away. I worked hard for it and I sacrificed a lot of it, and I think that that's important too, is also knowing that there's some sacrifice that needs to happen, that you can't necessarily do everything that you want to do when you want to do it in order to be focused and determined and ready to take the exam. But like having confidence is, I think, is key. It's not to go in there super afraid to take the exam, but just kind of preparing yourself and doing the best that you can. After I would study, like I said, the DSM-5, I would then go on a website that maybe randomly just like quizzed on the DSM-5 that I can click on, or some of the videos also has quizzes attached to them at the end of the video or throughout the video, so that you can make sure that you're actually able to apply the material and remember it and be able to recall it. So I think that's important, is that you're never going to study enough. I can't iterate that enough. You're never going to study enough. You're never going to be prepared enough to take this exam. I don't think that there's any way that you can ever be truly prepared to take the exam or truly have or know everything that's going to be on the exam. So I think that just hitting recall information, be able to apply that information, and also to be able to cross things off. I think like just being able to do process of elimination is key to the exam. Process of elimination is super key. So I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that you guys feel confident when you take the exam eventually, that you have the things that you need in order to feel prepared for yourself. But like I said, I don't think anyone's ever truly prepared, or you'll never know what's going to be in the exam. So you never can be truly 100% prepared. You can just go in there with what you have confidence, use process of elimination, use recall and application in order to apply those skills that you've learned in the fields and while you've been in school. And yeah, good luck. I didn't want this video to be too long, but I'm super excited to tell you guys that I'm an LMSW. And I didn't take months to study, but that was just me. You might need 5 months to study. You might need 6 months to study. You might only need 1 month to study. You only need maybe there's an exam open in 3 weeks. Maybe you feel competent enough in order to take it in 3 weeks. It's not the end of the world if you don't fail. Get back up, try again, and maybe take some pressure off yourself by not telling a lot of people. Just go with the flow of what feels right for you. Take breaks as needed, because I just feel like when you overwhelm yourself, then you start to doubt and you start to have too much information that you can't tell the difference what is what. I think it's just important to just like give yourself just enough time to study what you think you need to study and take the exam, get it over with, and then good luck to everybody. I hope that you guys are doing well. Happy Social Work Month, happy Women's Month, and yeah, let's get it, guys. Happy March, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.